Welcome to Graphite Hub's interview series, a series dedicated to all things graphite. Now, today I'm joined by Rutger van Raalten, co-founder and CEO of CarbonX Materials. So, welcome to the series.
Thanks, Harry. Nice to be with you today.
Fantastic. So, how about we kick this off, setting the scene? For those that aren't too familiar with CarbonX Materials, would you mind describing the company?
Yeah, sure. CarbonX is a critical battery materials company, and we produced a novel carbon anode material that's replacing imported graphite for lithium-ion batteries. So we basically address the supply chain vulnerability of graphite by making use of local infrastructure. So we produce already at full commercial scale and very at a cost competitive price.
Building on that in a bit more detail, can you walk us through the production process?
Yeah, so what we basically done is we re-engineered carbon black, which you probably are familiar with, is used as a conductive agent in batteries. But we can now make it store lithium ions very efficiently. The beauty of that is that it's happening already at full commercial scale, as I said, and the core innovation is a feedstock process that we emulsify, and that seamlessly integrates into these existing carbon black manufacturing plants. So now the carbon that we create can store lithium ions, we can control the quality, and as I said, at a very large throughput, so 100 tons per day.
Wow, okay, that's quite a significant amount of volume. And I think I've heard you talk about before that you've highlighted that CarbonX is a drop-in replacement for graphite. Now, this is quite an interesting proposition. So, how do the existing cell makers react to that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of interaction already with cell makers and a long-standing relationship with most of them for a few years now. And what is important for them is that we match the performance of synthetic graphite, the highest quality, but also make sure that they can implement that in their existing infrastructure. So they don't want to make any changes, no retooling whatsoever. And then what they like about what we do is that we can work with them together to realize that, to make that work. So they reduce their supply chain risk, but have no disruption in their production processes.
Okay. And so you mentioned there around synthetic graphite. How does your product compare to synthetic graphite? Are there any trade-offs?
It's basically following the same key metrics of synthetic graphite. And we put a lot of work, of course, in that to engineer our product to be a one-on-one replacement, while we are slightly different in structure and morphology. But what we have been capable of doing is not only make sure that it can perform similar at the key KPIs, but it also has a better cycle life and some fast charge behavior. So we can even outperform synthetic graphites.
Wow, okay. And then in terms of cost, how does that compare?
Yeah, cost is a very important issue for the automotive industry, and in graphite in particular, as the landed cost of graphite coming from China is still the cheapest available. Our process is using 70% less energy to manufacture. So that gives us a huge advantage in pricing compared to synthetic graphites locally, but also even the imported graphites from China.
And when we look at a lot of the companies I talk to on this podcast, some are very early stage, some are in production. Where do you sit at the moment in terms of how mature your technology is?
Yeah, so the production process is fully proven. We already supply to automotive industry with the right ISO and ITF standards. We've run in 3 different locations, so using different feedstocks, different reactor designs, always being able to produce our material on spec. So that's very far advanced. But the material itself is in late stage qualification with cell manufacturers. So finalizing the last technology risks in commercial cells. And we work closely together with our clients to realize that and get that on spec by early next year.
Oh, fantastic. And when we look at a lot of the companies in the graphite space at the moment, be it natural or synthetic, capital to build these plants is humongous. Some of these companies you're looking at, 500 million US dollars to get a plant up and running. How does CarbonX compare to these companies?
Yeah, I think that's indeed the most critical part of our proposition, I would say, is that it's not only a material solution where we basically disrupt the value chain, move it from China to more locally. The capex requirements are close to zero, because what we do is we don't need to build a whole factory. We're basically retrofitting existing infrastructure. And as you probably know, is that A, it's permitting, is always a challenge, and B, it's the time to build a factory, then the material being on spec, and then the unit economics should in the end add up. So that's basically the part we bypass by making use of this existing infrastructure. We seamlessly integrate into those existing factories. So we bring basically commercial capacity online immediately.
Okay, so then would I be correct in assuming that it's quite easy to replicate your process across multiple sites and locations?
Well, in a way, yes. You of course need to have some knowledge and trade secrets and the IP that we generated. So you can try to replicate it out of the blue. But that being said, with our knowledge, we are able to convert those factories and control the process to get the right morphology of the product.
And as we all know, qualification is key with leading cell manufacturers. Can you, I'm sure you know you probably can't go into too much detail around this, but would you be able to explain just where you're at in that process and when we can expect to hear some updates on how that qualification is going?
Yeah, definitely. As you said, there are, of course, limitations. But I think what's the exciting part about where we are today is that we see an acceleration in testing with our materials. Normally, these trajectories take long. We cannot accelerate them either. But we do see appetite already on the commercial side to lock in capacity of our material. Second of all, we work closely together with our clients to actually make sure that our material gets embedded in these commercial cells. So yeah, the last 2 years, we've been spending a lot of time getting our material at the right specifications in the commercial cells. The nice thing is that we do see that our customers are accelerating that and requesting more samples for later stage qualifications.
And where are those customers based? US, Europe, China?
Yeah, so we focus mainly on the US and Europe. We do have capabilities to manufacture in Southeast Asia and US at this moment, where we're unlocking new capacity in Europe. Our customers are mostly looking at US supply chains because that's where they feel the most pain at the moment. We do have our first capacity unlocked, so that's an announcement that's coming soon. So watch out for the headlines there. Because we can supply those directly in 2026 to our customers. I think US is our main market right now because we can manufacture from within US, but Europe is following suit.
Yeah. And how long has this technology been around, or how long has CarbonX been around for?
Yeah, very good question. We developed the products, first of all, not for battery industry in the first place. So we have been working on this for more than 15 years, 15. What is interesting is that we found a way to produce this at large scale for automotive industry, for tire industry at first. And then we found a way, especially our CTO, actually, Daniela Sordi, she worked for many years on converting this carbon black to store lithium ions. And then things accelerated in 2020 when we saw first battery performance, which was very close to graphite, actually. Then we developed further and we saw the acceleration in 2022 when the export curves came from China. And now the tariffs and vulnerable supply chains are doing its part. So we see an acceleration in the last few years in batteries. But the past years have helped us, of course, to scale the technology.
And so at Graphite Hub, I track, I think it's over about 100 companies in the graphite and anode space. So there's a lot of competition. Like, I guess to put it simply, what sets CarbonX apart from these companies, and why would a cell manufacturer switch to CarbonX over synthetic or natural?
Yeah, we see most traction from the largest cell manufacturers in EV because they simply need solutions, alternatives to graphite that doesn't disrupt their production cycles. This, I think, is where CarbonX stands out over any other competition. It's basically the scale that we operate at. And I mentioned earlier, 100 ton per day throughputs is what we can easily achieve. But second of all, it's cost. So we basically undermine the price of Chinese graphite that they're sourcing today, not looking even at graphite tariffs. So I think it's those two. It's volume and cost is where we really stand out.
And so you mentioned 100 tons per day. How do you see the production volume looking like as we, look forward to 2027, 2028? What are you looking at there?
Yeah, so For now, we basically supply sample materials in tons range. The first offtakes, and again, watched in headlines because in Q1 we're about to announce our first offtake with a European cell manufacturer. It will be the first 5,000 tons of capacity that we are booking right now. We're filling up. That we can expand further to 40,000. We do have the access to this amount of materials already today. But following that, it will be first 10% of graphite that's being substituted with our material. Our clients are looking further to increase that to 30%. So those amounts will increase rapidly. That being said, US, we expect offtake first, followed by Europe. So in principle, if you look at the sheer amount of graphite needed by customers, we will still be small in the beginning, but it can ramp up rather fast, as you probably know in graphite industry.
Exactly. Well, no, it sounds like it's an exciting time at the moment, and there's a lot, coming up in the near future. So, yeah, as we look forward for the rest of this year, 2026 and into 2027, what can we expect to see come out of CarbonX?
Yeah, 26 for us is really evolving now around the first offtake that I mentioned, still in the embargo, but that's really a key milestone for us as a company. Then what is really key for us is that one of the larger US tier 1 cell manufacturers is qualifying our material in their commercial cells. That we expect at the end of 2026, and in 2027 is really in terms of supplying those first orders. So becoming the first alternative really at scale and price embedded in a commercial cell. That's what's up for us. So we're super excited about that route and what's ahead of us. And yeah, we do see those things also coming our way.
Okay, no, it's an exciting time. I look forward to keeping up to date with what you and the team at CarbonX are doing. But yeah, appreciate your time today. And we look forward to having you again on here soon to discuss some of these items in a bit more detail.
Yeah, definitely, Harry.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Graphite Hub's interview series. We'll see you next time.